Hello, and welcome back to Extraordinary Connection, a daily devotional website brought to you by clergy from across the Michigan Annual Conference. My name is Pastor Robert, and I'm the pastor here at Lansing First United Methodist Church, and I'm glad to be bringing you this devotional today. One of my hobbies is playing video games. I remember as a kid being on the playground talking about and trading Pokemon with my friends on our Game Boys. I remember going over to friends' houses to play video games on all the systems that I didn't have. None of us owned everything, but together we could play just about any game that was out. At birthday parties and sleepovers, my friends and I would stay up all night playing games. As I got older and went off to college, video games were one of the things that helped me find friends. My roommates and our friends got into playing Pokemon again. This time, a little more competitively than in our childhood. We would speedrun games from our childhood, reliving old memories and creating new memories all at the same time. Online games like World of Warcraft and StarCraft 2 became objects of near obsession as we all played together, learned the intricacies of the games, and spent hour upon hour practicing with one another. Trips to the local used game store were excursions to try and find long lost gems of gaming eras gone by. Launch events were celebrations of the latest and greatest in gaming that inspired us to stand in lines in the cold of the middle of the night with dozens of other people that we had never met, but with whom we had this joy and passion in common. In short, gaming has always been about more than just the game for me. It's about the community and the relationships that form around the games. It is about the friends that I keep in touch with across the country through games. In fact, World of Warcraft was one of the ways that my wife Carrie and I kept in touch with each other early on in our relationship when we lived in different cities. The reason that I tell you all of this is to set the scene for you so that the rest of this story makes more sense. You see, I saw that the new World of Warcraft expansion recommended a piece of hardware that I don't have in my computer. So I decided that I was going to have to get a new solid state drive in order to get a better gaming experience. But once I was starting down the road of looking at new parts, it wasn't too much of a slide down that slippery slope before I was suddenly contemplating building a whole new computer from scratch. Now keep in mind, my current computer works reasonably fine. It's going on 7 years old, so it's starting to show its age in some regards. It's not as fast as it once was. The memory is starting to get a little full. But all in all, it's a fully functional computer. Nevertheless, I started doing research to figure out what parts I would need. I've been learning about how different components function and how they're installed in the case in order to understand which parts will cooperate with each other and which cases will fit everything that I'm looking at. I've been trying to figure out at what point spending a little more money is worth the performance increase and at what point I would be spending money just on brand recognition. So for several months, I've been learning all of these things so that come this week, I could be like millions of other Americans and obsessively scour the marketplace for the best deals on the things that I need. Or perhaps the more accurate and honest way of saying that is to get the best deals on the things that I want. Because that is the world we live in, isn't it? We're always being inundated with ads. Our online habits are always being monitored by marketing firms to target us with more specific information, all to get us to spend more money in the pursuit of a new purchase. As I was looking up Black Friday deals this past week, I saw one guide that gave some very sage, if obvious, advice. The best deal that you can get on Black Friday is to not spend money on something you don't need. If you're rushing out to get something just because it's on sale and not because you would have had a need for it otherwise, then you're not really saving money. And so I've been thinking about St. Francis a lot this past week. In particular, I've been thinking of one of the little flowers, one of the stories about his life, which teaches us a lesson in gratitude and humility. St. Francis had gathered together 12 of his followers and sent them forth into the world 2 by 2 to proclaim the gospel, just as Jesus Christ had done with his disciples. St. Francis was traveling with Friar Maceo, one of his companions, and they were going to travel to France. Along the way, they stopped in a town to beg for food according to the rules of their order. Francis started down one street and Maceo down another. And as Francis begged, people had little pity on him because he was, and I quote, a man of mean appearance and short of stature, and therefore looked down upon as a poor and vile creature by those who knew him not. So Francis was able to only scrounge up a few crumbs as he begged. Maceo, on the other hand, was tall and fair-looking, and so people gave him many loaves of bread to eat. After the monks had gathered their food, they reunited at a spring near the town, and as they sat down to eat, Francis began to repeat over and over again, "O Friar Maceo, we are not worthy of so great a treasure. We are not worthy of so great a treasure." And then Maceo interrupted and began to complain about what they did not have. "Dearest father," said Maceo, "how can that be called a treasure where there is poverty so great and such a lack of needful things? Here is neither cloth, nor knife, nor trencher, nor bowl, nor house, nor table, nor manservant, nor maidservant." To which Francis replied, "And this is what I hold to be a treasure, where there is no dwelling made by human hands, but all is prepared for us by divine providence, even as is made manifest by the bread we have collected on this table of stone, so fair, and this fountain so clear." How often are we more like Maceo than Francis? How often do we not see the treasures that are right in front of us because we're dreaming about the riches that someone else might have? How silly does it seem in this light to be upset about not having the fastest computer or the newest phone or that pair of shoes that's just calling to us or that piece of jewelry that would really turn heads? How different would Black Friday or Cyber Monday look if we were able to be more content with the riches that we already possess? If we were able to realize that we're complaining about having loaves of bread while the person sitting next to us only has crumbs and scraps? And it's not just as individuals that we do this, but as the church as well. How often do we fall into the trap of looking at what the church down the road or in the conference newsletter is doing and think to ourselves, gee, if only we could do something like that, then we would really be something to talk about. The pandemic has, I think, exaggerated this instinct within us. As we look at the ways that other churches are responding to this crisis, we can start to think, well, if I had the same budget to work with, or the same technology to work with, or the same number of people to work with, then I could do worship and outreach the way that it ought to be done. But my friends, God has provided us all the treasure that we need to be content and faithful. God has provided each of us with the gifts to serve as we are meant to serve. We aren't all called to be a mega church with thousands of people and state-of-the-art equipment. We aren't all called to be a rural church tending to the needs of a faithful few. We are called to be the people that God made us to be, in relationship with the people of our own communities, in the way that makes sense for our community. So my prayer for all of us during this season of consumption and desire is that we learn to be more like Francis and see the treasures that God has set before us. Amen.